This is the Game Changers podcast, where we share real-life stories from remarkable leaders that are transforming the world of service operations in financial services, healthcare, and BPOs. In this series, we explore some of the key challenges faced by service operations as they strive to deliver more capacity, more productivity, and more business impact. In each episode, we delve into how these Game Changers have addressed a key challenge or issue. Our guests share how they went about unlocking significant value, adopting best practices, and experiencing some game-changing results.
Hello, and welcome to Game Changers, the podcast that shines a light on the crucial role that operations teams have in driving business performance and improving staff and customer experience. So my name is Bhavesh. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at ActiveOps, and in each episode, I hone in on one key KPI or one key challenge that business has solved. We delve into how they went about doing this and explore the outcomes achieved. Now, one of the biggest challenges we all know in operations is about building that flexible operating model, having resources that can be used across different types of skills. So we're going to delve into that today. And I'm delighted to be joined by Nicole Mott, who's the Senior Manager of Transformation at Velonetic, to find out how they go about doing upskilling and cross-skilling across their specialist claims and premium adjusters, which is obviously a big challenge from an insurance perspective. So we'll hear from Nicole about how the company continues to transform and upskill their people to try and reduce the attrition and to support their customers who are effectively insurance companies, expand their services and portfolio of specialized, highly skilled people. So without further ado, first of all, thank you, Nicole, for joining us on the Game Changer podcast. Welcome to this session. First of all, before we jump into Velonetic and what you do from an insurance point of view, let's kind of hear a bit about yourself. So how did you end up in operations, Nicole?
So I can't say that when I left college, I really wanted to go into insurance. But I started at a company called Aon, and I worked in their aviation department. And over the years, I've had a number of roles within the business. I started off in credit control. And then I moved into a more operational role where I was managing teams across the claims area. Mm-hmm. My biggest role in operations was actually head of claims operations, which I did for a number of years. And then I moved over into our premium space to make sure that I had that kind of breadth and depth of understanding of the insurance market. And since then, I've done operational improvement, I've done change management, chief of staff, all within the same company. So even though it was Aon, I've kind of moved, we were tupied over into what is now Velonetic. But I've had a number of roles within that company, looking at really operations all the way.
That's fantastic. So switching to Velonetic then, so tell us something, because maybe some of our listeners don't know who Velonetic are and what you guys do. So tell us a little bit about Velonetic, and then, what does that mean from an operations perspective for you?
Yeah, of course. So Velonetic represents three joint ventures. So we are a company that is owned by DXC Technology, the International Underwriting Association, which is the IUA, and Lloyd of London. So we've got three shareholders that actually make up our organisation. Some people might have heard us previously called Exchanging or the Bureau. And quite recently, actually last year, that's where we rebranded to become Velonetic. We wanted to have our own identity and to make sure that we had that footprint within the London insurance market where people recognised us for what we were doing. So, and people might have also heard of it or thought of us as the London Market Joint Ventures. Okay. So, we rebranded last year in August as Velonetic. We've got over 20 years of London insurance market experience. That's for Lloyd's brokers, carriers, and managing agents, and also company carriers as well. And we work in insurance and reinsurance. We process over £1 billion worth of premium and claims transactions. And at the moment, we're actually building the new digital platform with DXC Technology to actually transform the London insurance market. So we do all the back office functions for the London insurance market, from premiums and claims. And we also have a big part of our business, which is also supporting our customers with claims adjusting, as well as what we call PAS, which is Policy Administration Services as well. So we have a real breadth and depth of knowledge in the insurance market across many different areas.
Fantastic. And I think, particularly the stuff that you guys do with the London markets, I would imagine the types of claims and adjustments are very specialist, right? And that probably kind of leads us very much into one of the challenges around from an ops perspective. And I guess that's part of that is about upskilling the individuals that you have. So perhaps just tell us a little bit about what operations looks like for you guys, and then we can delve into some of those key challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. So operations, we have our main operation within the UK, but we also have an operation in India that supports us as well from a processing background in the operations area. So we have had some really kind of specialist areas, particularly in the claims arena, where we have adjusters who have lots and lots of experience in particular, we call them classes of business, but they're specialty areas. So things like marine, aviation, political risks. And in that space, in particular in the claim space, we have some really, really highly skilled, really respected adjusters that actually support our customers. And with that, obviously, what we're trying to do is make sure that we are getting the support from them for the younger generation that we're also bringing through our organisation, because in the London market, it's quite known that we have a talent challenge trying to bring in new people from outside of the insurance sector, but also from graduates and school leavers as well. So one of the challenges that we've had is making sure that our senior people are passing on that experience, that knowledge, and starting to coach and mentor some of those people that are coming through, whilst also trying to attract new talent into the business as well. So that's been one of our challenges that we've been facing, particularly over the last couple of years. And our adjusters are phenomenal at what they do, and they have that knowledge and that experience and that network, and they understand how the market works. Insurance is a really complex, in some lines of business, really complex, and the knowledge that they have can only be built up by experience, talking, liaising, having those relationships with people in the market as well.
And I guess, that therein lies the challenge, right? Because I can imagine that some of your customers specifically want those adjusters because of their expertise.
Yeah.
And I guess, from an operations perspective, your best practice would say, you can cross-skill people, right? So, but in your scenario, you can't, because actually somebody who's very specialist in aviation, for example, is probably not going to be suited for marine or whatever it happens to be. So the traditional element of being able to have operations folks that can do multitasks becomes more of a challenge. So I guess that means it's all about upskilling then, as you kind of highlighted that. How do you make sure that you've got the retention of those individuals, because you're investing time and years of experience to those individuals and retaining them, because I would imagine there's potential risk of attrition somewhere along that process. And then, how, as you say, how do you bring new people on? And once the new people are in, you've got to be able to, I assume, get them up to speed and get them more and more experience as quickly as you can, so you have a bigger pool of more specialist adjusters for those requirements. So it's actually quite an interesting challenge of how you do that compared to a traditional ops function of a different type of bank or insurance product. So, I mean, how do you even think about joining those dots? How does that start with you guys? What do you do?
So you're absolutely right. So when you talk about kind of specialists, that's what makes the London market unique in as much as and we see this across the whole market. People specialize in a specific area. So like you said, aviation, marine, political risks, and that's where all the experience and all of the knowledge comes from. So there's a number of things that we've kind of embarked on to kind of help us support that. So it's supporting our most senior people and really getting them to be real coaches and mentors to some of the younger people that are coming through. We've tried also to look at this in a different way.
Okay.
So not to use the traditional mentoring process, which is where a more senior person mentors a more junior person. We've actually implemented quite recently 2 different ways of mentoring. The first one is, and people might know it more as reflection mentoring, not reflection, sorry, reverse mentoring. We've actually called it reflection mentoring, which is where a more junior member of staff actually mentors someone more senior. And that's really difficult for the actual senior person who's obviously got all the experience and wants to give that to other people to actually take on a different role. We started this about 18 months ago, and we've had a really successful relationship where a junior claims adjuster actually mentored our CFO.
Oh, wow.
And that relationship has absolutely blossomed. And the CFO, when you talk to them and hear the feedback they got from that relationship as well, it has been really key. So this isn't just about how do we take the more junior, inexperienced people and give them all the experience, but it's also how do we make sure that we're enriching and supporting our more senior people as well. So that's why we implemented that, because we thought that, and we've seen some really great value in that. We've also implemented something called speed mentoring. So normally in most mentoring relationships you would have over a longer period of time. What we're actually doing is we've identified some key senior people in the business, and they are doing 4-week mentoring with people that actually come forward and ask. So it could be anyone in the business, and around like a topic. So I'm actually doing one of these, and my topic is personal brand. So I'm helping again some of those inexperienced and other people within our business to understand how they can network and look at their own personal brand to actually help them with their career. So it's not as well just always thinking about the technical pieces that you know, where we can support and help people with their skills.
Yes.
Thinking about some of the other aspects of that as well. And alongside that, we've also come up with an adjuster program. And that program is where the senior adjusters then support some of the more junior adjusters in their progression. And we have specific topics in there that are really helping them. So they will go to court and they will see an actual claim actually unfold within a court environment, but they're there also to help and support with like day-to-day questions and things that, you know, the adjusters want to ask and get some more insight into as well. So a lot of this is about developing and learning and teaching, but also having and making sure that we are developing our senior people just as much as we are everyone else in the business.
That's fantastic. I think there's some really interesting ideas there, or kind of works on what you'd normally do, right? In some cases. I'm curious, in terms of these senior individuals being mentored, did you get pushback at that when you started that program, or were people generally quite open to it? Because I guess that you know, you would assume at that senior level there's not enough time, so you always have a lot more to do. You don't have enough time in a day to even think about mentoring, right? Let alone being mentored. Did you get that pushback, and was there any kind of key things that you can think about that you implemented that changed it?
So we didn't get any pushback because we are actually asked, because we did it as a pilot, because we wanted to make sure that it was actually beneficial in the business. So we actually asked senior people to actually come forward. So they was already brought into it because again, you know, they're the ones that have come forward and said we want to do this. We also did some training because it can be quite daunting for the mentee and the mentor, because they've got a completely different role reversal. So we did some training with them, and what was really interesting when we was getting the feedback is, for someone who's quite senior, their natural way is to maybe take over and revert back into a normal mentoring relationship. So we had check and balances with myself and another colleague with each of them. So we had one-to-ones with them to say, you are still progressing down this route of reflection mentoring rather than a normal mentoring relationship, because sometimes it can be easy to kind of just fall back into
Exactly.
that relationship. So we didn't get any pushback, but the feedback that we got was really, really powerful for that senior person. They got to see things through the lens of someone else, a lens of someone who's doing something day in, day out. And he actually sat, so that the CFO sat with that individual and watched them do their job to understand some of their pain points and some of the things that they have to do every day and some of the challenges they might face. And to be able to do that is really powerful, because sometimes when you're really senior, you're thinking about strategy, you're thinking about what the business needs to be doing to hit revenue and things like that. To be able to take a step back and spend time with people in the business that actually contribute to us being successful and understand what they do on a day-to-day basis and what works really well, and maybe some of the challenges they've got, can actually then really help them when they do think about strategy and where they're taking the business forward. So from that as well, it was really, really interesting to get that feedback.
And what about it from the other side, from the more junior individual who's mentoring the senior person? Did you see kind of them after they get over which I think is natural, after they get over the fact
definitely
mentoring somebody that's way more senior than you. Once you get over that, did you find that they flourished as well in terms of their confidence, their career, and progression within the organization?
Absolutely. Confidence was a massive thing, but also just being able to have those different conversations with people at different levels. I think sometimes there's this stigmatism with senior people that they're kind of put on this pedestal, and and what this allowed, it's not just the person who was mentoring, but also other people in our business to go, actually, that person's approachable.
Yes, I can talk to that.
To see a senior person sitting next to somebody and watching what they're doing is great for other people to see. And then that opens up conversations. So as a senior person, you then start to hear and see things that are real, that are actually happening on the ground, rather than what you think is happening. And so I think that from that viewpoint, it was really great for the senior person, but also for the person who was mentoring, to build their confidence, to feel that they can have those conversations, to feel that they have someone that they can go to and talk to as well. And I don't think they realise the impact that then also has on those people around them, because they're going to take them on that journey with them. Because if they feel confident being able to have open conversations with senior people in a business, then that's going to encourage other people to do that as well.
Yeah, completely. I think that's when you look at businesses today, I mean, that's one of the probably the biggest challenges with any kind of career is being confident enough to have those conversations at different levels, right? And that's seems like a really interesting way of doing it. I've never come across anybody that does the reverse mentoring, so that's really fascinating to see how that's worked for, potentially, obviously, the stuff that you're doing. Now, one of the things about all this, though, is, you can put all these fantastic initiatives together, but it fundamentally comes down to capacity, right? Because ultimately, do you have the time within your environment or your day-to-day roles? I can imagine claims and some of the the more complex stuff that you guys work on can be all encompassing and take up most of your capacity during the day and for periods of months, I would imagine, for a particular claim. How do you go about freeing people's time up so they can actually do these things, which are obviously incredibly important to from a progression point of view, reduce attrition, all that well-being, all that staff engagement stuff? How do you go about doing that kind of stuff?
So obviously, there's a number of things that we do. The first thing comes from our CEO. He is very vocal around the development and our people. So when you've got a message and a directive that comes down from the top, then that does make it a little bit easier, because he's really supportive and and he wants all of our people to develop. And he also recognises that we need to retain our people, and in order to do that, you have to develop them.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, in particularly in our ops area, our operations director again is really, really focused on people's development, and make sure that her managers are all given the time to ensure that every single individual has time to do development. There are certain things that we have to do for people around compliance and things like that, where they have to take those courses. But where we, as much as possible, we really encourage people to look at their own personal development, talk to their manager, look at what courses they can go on to develop themselves.
Yeah.
And as I was saying, we've also created this adjuster program. So the senior management within our business and the senior manager within claims is really supportive of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And when you've got people's buy-in, then things happen and it's made to happen. We also obviously use active ops tools to capacity manage as well. So that also gives us the insight to ensure that everyone has that availability and capacity to invest in themselves. One of the things that we're really focusing on at the moment is investing in yourself, being yourself at work. So when you've got all of these things, where you've got the directive from your CEO and your senior leadership team, and you've got the tools that then allow you to support that, and you've got managers that are all bought into it, and you've got a workforce that are really driving to do the best for their customers and for themselves, it all then just comes together.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's a combination of things, isn't it? It's not just
Absolutely.
can free up time for you, but you also have to want to do it. I think next thing, right? And having a senior, or in your case, a CEO, very passionate about it makes a massive difference, because it sets the tone for the rest of the organization in terms of what we believe in. And I guess part of that is also you're in that environment where, you know, you do have to bring in new individuals to the organization or to insurance. As you said, you know, it's probably something you hadn't thought about going into insurance before you started. And, you know, most of us end up in a career that we didn't think we were going to be in, and we end up in either tech or insurance or wherever else we end up. And sometimes you look back and say, how did that happen? And here I am. But, you know, you've got to try and make a conscious decision. You know, trying to get talent across businesses and in operations is very, very hard, and retaining those individuals over a period of time. So, you know, these initiatives clearly enable somebody to come into your organization and feel part of something that they can also grow their career with it. Have you kind of seen any or can you point to any results that you've seen over the last 18 months, 2 years of doing this transformation stuff? Have you seen things like attrition go down or staff engagement? How do you measure it? That's, I guess, is a question.
Yeah, so there's two things I think you just touched on there around staff engagement and also attrition. They're the main things, and we've definitely seen our engagement scores have been improving.
That's great.
And it's not just about the engagement scores; it's about the engagement participation. So when we started doing our engagement scores, the participation was a bit lower. And when I looked at that, it was like, so, you know, if you've got X amount of people that aren't responding, are they engaged, or did they just not want to do it? So you've got this kind of void of not knowing whether those people were engaged or not. So we did quite a bit of work really understanding why people didn't answer the survey. Was it time? Was it that they didn't get it? They didn't know that there was a deadline, all of that kind of stuff, even down to the point of the time that we did it. Was it actually when it was the summer and loads of people were on holiday? So we did a lot of work on that, so that it wasn't just a focus on the engagement scores going up, it was also on the participation of the engagement, because that's a really strong factor. And also not just looking at scores. What's really important for me is reading the comments.
Yes.
The comments tell you more than any engagement score. So and having that commitment. So I committed to everyone in the business that I would read every single comment, and I did. And actually what that drove was an action plan that maybe wasn't necessarily just aligned to the scores, because the comments were really powerful, and there was a
Mhm.
lot of stuff that came through on those comments.
Yeah.
So also using things like that, I think is really powerful. And then attrition, absolutely. And one of the things that we're looking to do now is, even though we've got DXC Technology, who's one of our biggest shareholders, they have their own graduate program and early careers program. We're looking whether we can devise that ourselves within Velonetic, so that it's really, really focused on insurance, because that's really key. Because when you're going to talk to people at universities and look at the different talent or apprentices or early careers, we want that passion to come through. And what we would really like, as we're kind of building this framework, is then our senior people, so like our seniors adjusters, to actually come with us and talk to people about how great it is to be in insurance. Because you're absolutely right. I don't think anyone sits at school and is like, I really want to go into that, unless your parents are in it and they can see it. So to have people that can actually talk about insurance in a real passionate way, to then really entice people to go, actually, I think I'd really enjoy that. One of the other things that we're starting to do, and we actually piloted it with my 2 children, is for young children to come in and do their work experience with us.
Oh, fantastic.
And my eldest, he came in, and he spent 2 weeks with us. He spent some time with a fine arts underwriter, and he came away and he was so excited, because he was like, did you know, and I was like, oh, yeah. And he was talking about things I never thought that he would talk about with regards to like fine arts, paintings and things like that. And then he actually said, oh, we were talking about me going into insurance and doing something. I didn't realize that they have insurance for footballers and sports. So just by having the opportunity for a young person to spend a couple of weeks with someone as well, so they can start to pass on some of their experience and knowledge, that's what inspires the next generation to want to come through and actually come into our industry. So you have to invest to then take things forward, and that's the kind of key thing I think that we're doing at the moment. We're investing in, like you say, a lot of different initiatives that will then hopefully give us that return on investment in 6, 12, 18 months time. And also looking at things not just through, how we do things now, but how are things going to be done in the future. So looking at, what skills do we need to provide our people with regards to AI.
Of course, that's coming down the track, right? Yeah,
absolutely. And what kind of skills will they need for the future? So when we're talking about upskilling, it's also about cross-skilling and helping people to understand what I do today might not be the same as tomorrow, but the skills I've got are transferable.
Yes.
That then opens up a whole new world, because and I've got a really great example of this. I had someone who's actually joined my team in Change, and when she applied for the job, she had her own business, and she said, oh, I don't know whether I can do change. And then when I spoke to her about how she interacts with her customers, and I said to her, have you ever had something where you've had to up your prices, as an example, and then you've had to talk to your customer to say, oh, I'm putting my price up? She went, yeah. And I said, so you've taken your customer through a change of something in your business? And she was like, yeah, I have. And it's just helping people to understand that there's different ways and different lenses you can look at things using the same skill. And again, I think that's really powerful as well.
I think that's a really interesting and actually a very inspiring example, because sometimes you don't know, you do things day to day without realizing you've got those skills. I mean, I'll take a little tangent actually, Nicole, because I think you said something there which was really interesting, and I think it's very topical right now, which is the whole impact of AI and what's AI going to do for us. I mean, you've got at one level where AI is going to eat us all up and destroy us, and all the way through to take all our jobs away, through to people excited by it. I mean, what does AI look like for insurance in your mind? What do you think it's going to be? What are the exciting things about it? What are the fearful things about it?
So I think obviously in the insurance market at the moment, particularly in the London insurance market, we are going on a digital journey. We've been a marketplace that has been always focused on relationship building and very paper driven.
Yeah.
So that journey started about probably 2-3 years ago. Well, it's actually been a journey that I think in some iteration has been going on for years. But we've got that real focus on that now. What that will allow us to do is actually expand as a market into other jurisdictions and also globally. And we're helping to build the future in that digital kind of space within Velonetic. And it's all about making insurance easier and helping our customers to be able to improve what they're doing for ultimately the end client.
Of course.
So it's exciting. I think we're in the insurance market, we're just at the beginning of that journey. So it'll be quite difficult for me to talk about kind of
what's it going to look like,
what's it going to look like and what's possible. But just even listening to conversations that happen, and we had one of these this morning actually around chat GDP and what can come out of that. And some of this is, especially in insurance, you're never going to get away from the fact that the knowledge is needed. It's complex.
Yes.
It's specialty. That's what makes the London insurance market unique.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what brings customers to the London insurance market.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also then looking at, what are some of the things that could be automated that then allow people to do the really enrichment of those things and actually provide a better customer service.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what everyone wants to be doing. And that's then where businesses will grow, because then we're going to get more business, we're going to have more capacity to do that, and we'll get people coming to the London insurance market to actually place their risks with us.
Yeah, totally. I think you're right. I think most companies are in that starting journey, even though AI has been around for years, right? In different guises. It's just topical right now, but it's been around. But I think in operations, it has the potential to be transformative in the way we do things and the way we engage, with the ultimate aim of helping provide a better service to customers or employees and the usual things that we as operations people care about. So I think there's a real interesting journey that we'll all go through over the next 3 to 5 years as to how we use these new technologies to better improve while maintaining a brand presence, right? Because you don't want to reduce your brand in any way because you're using technology. So it's going to be an interesting journey. So
I think some of it as well is so when we started on our robotics journey, it's also change management is really aligned to any of this stuff. So having great change management supporting what you're doing in any business as it's changing is imperative, I think. And just as an example, when we started on our robotics journey, we really tried to make sure that the processes we were looking at to automate, the people that were doing them, those suggestions actually came from them. So we set up a board and we asked all of our people in our business to come forward with ideas. Straight away, these were their ideas. We were saying to them, what parts of your job are really mundane, that if you could, you'd like to be automated so you can really focus on the value add to our customers. So those ideas came from them. And then as we started to progress, we kept them informed. So they were actually part of the journey and they helped us with the process. They helped us build the robotic process. And we actually named our robots. So they actually had names. So we had Poppy was one of them. So it's also about using your change experience and change knowledge with change practitioners to help people go on that journey so they don't fear what's happening. And it was then a really positive experience. And we didn't have that thing, where you're talking about, people were fearing about, what does this mean to me?
Yeah.
So I think if you do those things simultaneously, you're a much better position to not have people worrying or that resistance piece as well.
I think it's underestimated. I think, when I talk to many senior ops people all over the world, and I can definitely say that one of the drivers towards success in operations is actually the change management piece and how you bring people along the way in the journey. And I've been lucky enough to interview so many ops game changers, and there's a uniqueness around bringing their teams along that path, and it becomes incredibly successul and powerful. Really, really interesting, and in some ways, it's so simple, right? It's the obvious thing, ask for their own suggestions, and pick off the things that are the most annoying, and people will become more au fait with it and want to be part of that journey. So, I think sometimes we have a tendency to overcomplicate things, don't we? And sometimes it's the simplest thing is the best thing, really.
I think all of this is about just always keeping in the forefront that this is people, and we all want to do a good job, and we want our business to be successful, and we want to be successful, and ultimately we're people. And if you communicate and engage with people, and get them to understand the bigger picture, what's the overarching strategy that we're all working towards, and they've got a purpose in that, and how they're going to contribute to that. Sometimes it's those small things that, like you said, are the simple things that can sometimes be forgotten.
Yes.
So if you can take a step back and think about what are those simple things, and try and embed those, or revisit those, or reinforce those, then the impact that gives you is so much more than sometimes what we get caught up in, which is the run of the mill, pressure and all of that kind of stuff.
Exactly. I think that's it's spot on there, really. It kind of leads us back to the journey that you guys have been on. There's a couple of things that I'd be curious to understand from your perspective. I mean, it seems like a really fascinating journey that you've been on. Certainly from a kind of change perspective, also trying to tackle some challenges within the your core London market insurance space, with resources and skills, and and bringing new people on, and as well as the attrition side. Looking back at the journey that you've been on, what are you most proud of?
Oh, that's a great question. That's one I often ask in interviews. So from an operational viewpoint, I would say our claims business. We went through some significant change probably 7 years ago, and that's when I took over the whole claims area, and that was quite challenging because our market had asked for choice, and at the same time we were trying to build our claims operation. So it was exciting because obviously we were trying to build an operation as there was this significant change that was happening in the market, and we did it, and it's now the business that it is, and it's really successful. We've got some phenomenal people in that team, and being able to lead that with our claims director at the time was probably the thing I'm most proud of, because it was all about our people. It was all about getting them to buy into what we were doing, and being able to work so closely with the operations director at the time, the claims director, sorry, at the time, and have that kind of growth, as well as looking at how do we retain our staff, because you're going through that turbulent time. They were like, what's happening? Are we going to have a job? And to be able to do that and grow at such pace,
yes,
to secure roles for them, it was brilliant. And what that also created was a real team camaraderie where everyone pulled together, and that was a real attribute to the claims director at the time, who was leading that, and I think then myself and the managers I had underneath me. So I think that's the thing operationally I'm most proud of. From everything else in my role, I think the people stuff that we do as a business, we're really focused on people. We've had a real focus, as I said earlier, with regards to being authentic and being yourself at work, and that's been driven by ERG groups that have been set up, looking at the engagement scores, listening. One thing that I kind of is a philosophy of mine is try to listen to understand, not listen to respond. And I think that doing that and seeing how our business has started to change, particularly with the rebrand as well, it's kind of, there's been a number of things that have happened where it's like, it's all coming together now. And we've got the rebrand, we've got our CEO who's really kind of driving that agenda, and then we're able to really focus on our people.
That's fantastic.
I think that is, and to see new people coming in and the amount of new people that we've employed, and the fact that the engagement scores that they're coming back with are really positive, is something that I'm really proud of personally, and I think it's an amazing organisation to work for.
I mean, I think it's not to be underestimated. I think some of the biggest challenges with operations is about getting people on side and engaged and excited, engaged with the brand and what you're trying to achieve. So, what you've described today, it's been phenomenal. I think some of the, the things that you've put in place would be great insights for, your peers and other organizations to think about different tactics that you can use. And it kind of leads me to that question, I guess, if you're going to give somebody advice, one of your peers, you're having a chat to somebody about what you've done, what would the advice be if they want to do something similar?
I think it is that listen to understand, don't listen to respond, because like I said, the most powerful thing for me when I think about people and operations and how you can keep people engaged and want to stay with you to further their career with you, that the biggest thing that I took away was when I read the comments from the engagement survey. It was so powerful because you get all the questions that are very prescriptive. They're the questions that are generally asked to give you an engagement score. When people have the opportunity to actually write something, that's when you get the feeling. You get to read how people feel, not answering a question yes or no or 1 to 5. It's how they feel and how honest and open they are. And I think if you can do that and have those opportunities to just listen and actually listen to what people are saying, then that helps you to then go, okay, what do I need to fix? Because and another example of this is we literally just did an engagement survey in January, and myself and the HR director, we looked at all the responses, looked at all the comments, and then I actually went back to the organisation that do the survey, and I said, can you independently look at the results and tell me what you think? Because I'm an employee as well, so when I'm looking at the results, I might actually be biased. I have my own unconscious biases when I'm reading the comments or looking at the survey. So can you independently tell me what you think and see if the two things correlate? And they actually, luckily everything did, but they actually came up with a couple of things that we hadn't thought of, which was really good. So and that then has allowed us to then go, okay, so what's our action plan? And our action plan is based on what our employees and our staff are asking for, rather than on what we think they want.
Yeah, it's actually fantastic advice. I think there's a psychology around if you're going to be putting a comment in, that there's something there, right? For sure. So I think that's really sound advice for everybody that's in operations that's trying to do some transformation exercise, regardless of what industry you're in. So one final question for you, Nicole, if you don't mind. What is, if you look at a crystal ball, what do you think operations are going to look like in the future?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it will look very different, but that's not a bad thing. So I think that people, as I was saying earlier, I think people's roles will be different and will change, but the skills that people have can be utilised in a different way. I think it's still going to be really busy. I think it's still going to be quite challenging at times. Customers are still customers, and they still have a high expectation. I think that we're going to have to kind of raise the bar to meet those expectations. So I think that they're all of those things are still going to be there. It's just going to be how we approach that might be different. But I think as long as you communicate and take people on that journey with you, then I think that we've got the opportunity to have something in the future that will look and feel different. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's a bad thing.
No, I think that's a very wise view on what's going to happen. So, Nicole, listen, thank you so much for joining us. I've really thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I've learned a lot about how you can bring people along the journey. And I'm with your son, by the way. I'd want to be an adjuster in the either fine arts or even have a soccer player or something. That would be that would be awesome. A football player, that would be the best. So it's opened my eyes anyway, Nicole. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
So you've got an incredible business. I've learned, as I said, your CEO and the kind of direction that you're going, the emphasis on people. There's so many companies, they pay lip service to this stuff, and it certainly appears that you guys don't, and are really focused on solving what are going to be challenges in the future, retaining staff, bringing new people into the industry, and having a journey and a process that individuals can go through. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And also thank you very much to our listeners for joining us, and please do check in to catch up more episodes of Ops Game Changers to hear more fascinating insights from other leaders like Nicole in the field of operations, and how they go about overcoming challenges that we all face in order to drive that productivity and boost up performance across their enterprises. So please do like and subscribe, and thank you very much for listening.
Today's Ops Game Changers podcast was brought to you by ActiveOps. We'd love to hear your thoughts. You can do that by sharing them on our Facebook, LinkedIn, or X feeds, or you can comment in the comment section of the YouTube version of this podcast. And if you've enjoyed what you've heard, please do like and subscribe, and check back in soon to hear more valuable insights from other inspiring leaders in operations. Thanks again for listening, and goodbye.